Hello, my name is Gabby, and I am a dev experience engineer here at Vercel. And today I am chatting with Takib, the creator of Marble. Takib, where are you calling in from, and what time is it there?
So I'm calling from Abuja in Nigeria. It's about 6:30 right now. So it's night time. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And for those of you who are not familiar with Takib or familiar with Marble, Takib, would you like to introduce yourself and tell everyone what Marble is?
Okay. Uh, Hi guys. So I'm Takib, and for the past few months, I think to a year now, I've been working on Marble. Marble is a headless CMS. It's a headless CMS, but it's primarily focused on managing blocks. So it's very lightweight and it's quite simple to use. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. And I just want to make sure everyone is on the same page about CMSs and what that means. So, a
Okay.
CMS is a content management system. And when I think of the term content management system, it feels very entangled in the world of open source because you think of something like WordPress and the creator of WordPress, Matt Mullenweg, who is a huge open source proponent. And I'm curious, how is Marble CMS different than some of these older, more like OG CMS systems like WordPress? And what problems is it solving for developers?
So I think much like a lot of other projects, Marble came from a personal need. Um, So I used to do a bit of freelance back when I just left school. I think that was 2 years ago. Now, in a few days, it's going to be 2 years since I graduated. So I did freelance projects for local businesses and some fellow students. Often they needed a blog, kind of, or something similar to a blog. So I would usually have to um, build like a mini admin dashboard where they could publish stuff. And a lot of the times you're not technical. So I think how Marble differs is um, it's quite simple. It's as simple as CMS can get, right? So yeah, so after having to do that for like 4, 3 to 5 different clients, I decided I wanted to build a like a mini CMS which I could reuse for my clients, which is kind of how Marble, the initial idea for Marble came about. So I guess Marble differs from the more OG CMSs because it's quite simple and focused on blocks. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Would you be interested in sharing a demo of Marble? Because I've seen it, a lot of folks at Vercel have seen it, but I want everyone here on the call to see it as well.
Yeah, sure. Let me share my screen and then we can get started.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and
Awesome.
I while you're pulling that up, I just wanna say that I do love that, right? And I feel like a
Mhm.
lot of open source projects start that way, of you
Yeah,
have a very specific issue you're trying to solve as a
yeah,
developer, or for users, and you want it to be simple, right? So I
yeah.
think that's amazing.
So I think this is, let me quickly head to the Marble dashboard. So this is the dashboard. It's pretty simple. There's not much to see here. It's just an overview of your API request, and you can see your um, files, your images. So how Marvel works is it gives you a page. You have categories and you have your tags, which you use to group posts. And pretty much this is all you need to do. Yeah, so the editor is kind of built to be as simple as possible. When you close the sidebar, it kind of looks like a blank sheet, right? So it's meant to be without distraction. So you could just make a test post, test content, right? And then when you want to publish, you can hit this. You can pick something out from your gallery, write quick description, and yeah, you can just pick a bunch of stuff. and then you can save. And just like that, you have a new post on Marble, which is this test post. You can click on it to view it again. Yeah. So I think I have a local dev server running. Let me quickly pull it up. Let's see how it looks. Yeah. So you can kind of pull your posts into your sites. It's quite simple, actually. Yeah, and that's all there is to. That's all you need to make posts on Marble. It's pretty simple. Yeah.
That is the cleanest, simplest CMS I personally have ever seen. And this brings up 2 points that I want to mention.
Yeah.
So I really like the idea of a CMS being the poster child for open source. I tell
Yeah.
people all the time that open source isn't just, hey, our code is visible. It's an ethos, right? It's this
Yeah.
idea that everything on the web should be open and free. And in the words of our CEO, Guillermo, he said that everyone online they're entitled to a slice of the internet. And I think
Yeah.
blogging tools, right, like a CMS that allows people to make websites and blogs, it contributes to that, right? You can have a slice of the internet and you don't have to be wildly technical. Like you don't have to know how to code a website and code blog posts. So I think that what you are building with Marble is so beautiful. And I just want to say thank you because you're contributing to an open web. And
Yeah.
I think another thing that's interesting that you mentioned is that you wanted this to
Mhm.
be a tool for people who were not super technical. Anyone could just kind
Mhm.
of pick this up and make blog posts. So, can you
Yeah.
talk about how you created Marble, the types of people who are using Marble, because you had a really cool anecdote about your sister, and how
Mhm.
you see Marble going in the future and how people can contribute to it?
Okay. So, I okay, like I said earlier, Marble kind of came because I wanted to have a CMS I could reuse for my clients, and for the most part, a lot of them were not super technical. I guess you do need to have some sort of developer to integrate Marble, right? But I was the developer then, but I simply wanted a dashboard, a user interface where they could kind of just write content and hit publish. So yeah, that was how Marble came. That was the initial idea. And then my sister reached out to me one time. She wanted a blog. She wanted to be able to publish stuff, obviously.
Mhm.
And so she's not super tech savvy. She doesn't really uh, know much about stuff like that. So I had to kind of, so I thought the idea was to think of an interface, right? That's simple enough for her to use and publish her content in. So that was the inception of Marble. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
I mean, I think I would say Marvel has changed
Mhm.
a lot over the past few months because people using Marvel now they're primarily developers. I've got a bunch of feature requests, which I'm still thinking about how to approach without making it overly complex. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's changed quite a bit.
Yeah. And from what I recall, Marble initially
Mhm.
came from the open source developer community, right? It was based off
Yeah.
of a template, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So I don't really have I didn't really have a CS background. I got into the open source ecosystem back during COVID. I was on YouTube. I watched a bunch of videos and stuff like that. So I started following people from Vercel and a bunch of other companies. Right. So I came across a tweet one day, right? It was by Hayden. I think that was before he got into Vercel. He tweeted a monorepo template called NextForge. at the time. So I was curious. I wanted to know how they work and stuff like that. And at that point, it was the docs, the turbo docs by Vercel were kind of complex for me to reason about. So what I did was I cloned Hayden's template and I kind of dug into it to see how he set things up. And I think there were two other open source repos using Turbo, which I looked into. So that's kind of how I put Marble together to put on the internet for the first time. So yeah, Marble is, it wouldn't be here without the work of other open source people. So
Yeah, and
pretty cool.
I think that's very open source, right? Very open source coded, where someone posted a template, you cloned it, and then this is all very publicly documented on Twitter. Hayden came back later to contribute to your open source project, which was a clone of his template. And I think
Yeah.
that's just such a beautiful thing about the open source community is that it's a very circular economy, right? Like everyone's contributing and supporting each other. And I also think open source is a really great starting point for everyone, right? When they're either first getting into tech or as they are like growing their career in tech. And you
Yeah.
mentioned that you don't come from a CS background. So what is your background and how did you fall into the tech space?
Okay. So I got into tech, I would say officially back in 2017. I had just graduated secondary school. It's probably called high school in America.
Yeah.
So um, there were a few months we had from graduation where we had to write entrance exams and stuff for the university. So I was kind of idle at home, and we had a repair shop close by. They fixed phones, laptops, and a bunch of other gadgets. So that's kind of how I got started. I didn't like hardware because I used to get scared of, I didn't want to break stuff on the motherboard. So when I got to school, I kind of dropped it entirely. I didn't do much of it, right? So back during COVID, when COVID came and we were all home, schools closed down, so we were all at home. Um, I got into watching videos on YouTube of people building websites and stuff like that. So that's kind of how I started. Next.js was quite popular on YouTube then. Almost every video was Next. I used to watch Josh Tried Coding a
Oh
lot.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I learned most of the stuff I knew from Next.js from Josh's YouTube. So I
Love
picked
that.
it up, did a bunch of projects, and followed a bunch of people in the community on X. So that's kind of how I got into it. So yeah, when I got the idea for Marble, and I've been watching some videos, so I have this problem, and I now have a skill set. So I thought, why not try to use what I've learned to, you know, fix the problem I'm having. So which is kind of how I came around building Marble. So yeah, that's the story.
Yeah, I love that. And so
Yeah.
can I ask, what did you study in college or university?
Oh, okay. So I studied geology.
Wow. Okay.
Geology. Yeah.
So I love that. So this brings me to a very like hotly debated topic in the Marble ecosystem. Is
Mhm.
Marble named after the little spherical glass beads, or is it named after the rock, a marble?
It's it's named after the rock, the
Okay.
Marble Rock. I did geology, and
Oh,
so I just picked a random rock and just thought marble sounded good. Yeah.
very cool. Very cool. And can I ask, in your community, right? Like, do you know a lot of people who worked in tech, or were you kind of like the first person in your friend group and your family who got into tech?
Yeah, in my family, I would say I am the first. I have a bunch of friends who we went to school together. We studied the same course, right?
Mhm.
Uh, but we were all kind of leaning towards tech. So that's kind of why it gave me that extra push to look into, yeah, tech.
Yeah, and I ask that for two reasons. So the first reason is that you said a part of your journey was that you were watching content on YouTube. So Josh Coding, who I've met Josh, he's fantastic. And you're consuming content from Hayden and like other Vercel employees. And something that I hear a lot with people who are like afraid to get into open source or they've never, engaged with the open source community is that they're afraid to build in public, right? Or they want to start making content, but they're maybe shy. But then you hear stories like this where someone has built something beautiful and they would never have like learned about the technologies or had that skill set if it were not for a pivotal YouTube video or a post on Twitter that like linked back to a GitHub repository. So I want to use this as an opportunity to encourage people to build in public, make the video, make the post on Twitter. The worst thing that will happen is that, I mean, we live on a rock in space. Like, what's the worst thing that would happen? But the best thing that would happen is that you'll inspire someone.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Another reason I ask about your kind of like tech community around you is that when I think of Nigeria, I think that it's an incredibly innovative place. There's loads of stuff, like companies from like fintech to dev tools coming out of Nigeria, but it's such an overlooked geography. I think, we have a tendency to look at like maybe like San Francisco, New York, and maybe like Berlin, right, as like tech hubs. Are there any either open source projects or companies out of Nigeria that you're really excited about right now?
So if I'm being honest, I'm not really plugged into the open source ecosystem over here, right? But I would say there's tons of projects, tons of products coming out of Nigeria, Lagos, especially. Yeah, there's a bunch, right? Mostly fintech, but there are small projects that I've seen. I think there's one by a designer from Lagos I saw recently. It's called Post Hearts. It's this tool that lets you write cute letters to your loved ones or your friends. So it's pretty good. I've used it. I quite like it. It's a good project.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and there was recently a company, a fintech company that I know was acquired by Stripe, and a lot of like YC funded fintech companies specifically out of Nigeria. So
there's I would say there's a bunch. I think one of the reasons I can receive payments right now from foreign clients is due to a lot of YC companies that started out of Lagos and they got funded. So yeah, it's quite cool.
Yeah, I love that. So I think that it's always interesting to hear how maybe more traditional like businesses and companies like feed into the open source community and vice versa. It's a very interesting ecosystem. But speaking of Nigeria being this hub of innovation, I would say a hub of like commerce and entrepreneurship. I think that's something that I really wanted to touch on with you is that you're not just an open source contributor, right? Like you've created Marble, you contribute to it heavily, but Marble is also a business, right? So it's a fully fledged product that consumers can buy subscriptions to. And that's a really interesting thing in the open source space, right? Because I think that open source a lot of times gets synonymized with free, but when it comes to people being able to keep contributing to open source for it to be sustainable, there's just a reality of like sometimes we have to be interested in revenue and running it like a business and charging people for a service, which Marble does. And Marble does a beautiful job at hosting and running the service. Can I ask, have you received any pushback from the open source community for Marble being a business as well as an open source project?
Not really. I would say the community has mostly been supportive, right?
Mhm.
So far.
That's good.
Uh, but at the same time, it's Marvel isn't really profitable yet, so it's kind of hard to balance it. So I need to do a bunch of other stuff to keep Marvel running, and thanks to the open source program for helping with that. So yeah, it's hard, I guess, but I've been reached out. A few people reached out to me, and they really liked Marble. They wanted to use it for their products, and they're willing to pay. So I think what I've realized is, even if it is open source, or even if it's simple as anything can be, uh, people are willing to pay for a good experience, right? So yeah, that's why I keep pushing Marble, because yeah, I really like what I'm doing, and I've gotten some people give really good feedback and be supportive. So I'm gonna keep going, see how it goes.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love Marvel, and I have it implemented on my own personal portfolio site. That's
Yeah.
not live yet because I'm very shy, but it will be live soon. But
Okay.
yeah. So you'll be the first to know about that. But
Okay.
yeah, something I'm super curious about is, and I hear this a lot with open source companies, right? Is
Mhm.
that you have this amazing network, an amazing community of people who are contributing and they love your product and they're
Yeah.
using it.
Mhm.
But then you have this kind of like weird situation where when you want to get revenue and you want to start making your project or your company profitable, you
Yeah.
either are going to have to like reach out to the community who's contributed.
Mhm.
And sometimes people don't necessarily see the value of like paying for a service, especially if they're like developers and they've contributed to it and they know how it works from the back
Yeah.
end. Or you have to look for funding from either like angel investors or VC firms.
Mhm.
But with open source, there's always this kind of sense of like, well, you don't have a moat because there's no intellectual property, right? Because everything's out there and it's open.
Yeah.
So for Marble, do you feel like your revenue, right, like as you move forward
Mhm.
and the company grows and matures, do you feel like the revenue initially is going to come from the community of your users and subscriptions, or do you think it's, and even maybe like enterprise contracts or
Yeah.
from like VCs, investors, things like that?
I would. I've not thought about it too much, but I would say um, right now, I, I think developers are kind of hard to sell to, and Marble is kind of like a dev tool, right? Like you mentioned, they might not want to pay because they know how it works and they can probably do something similar. So it's quite hard to sell. But I've gotten a few people that, regardless of the fact that they're developers, they are not willing to spend so much time building something like Marble from scratch when they could just pay. So I would say, for now, Marble's revenue is probably going to be from the few people in the community who want to pay. But maybe we'll look towards raising funding down the line. We'll see. That
Mhm. Very cool. Yeah, whenever
yeah.
you get into YC, let me know so I can come to
Okay.
your YC
I
celebration party.
will
Love that.
do. Yeah.
Yeah. No, very cool. But yeah, I think that tools like Marble are so
Mhm.
beneficial because and I think this is like maybe an oversimplification, but I as an adult human, I know how to cook. But and I can go to the grocery store, I can buy ingredients, I could spend every day cooking. But yeah,
Yeah.
you will find me in a fast food driveway once or twice a week. Because I think that there are times where paying for convenience and paying for someone else who does something
Yeah.
in the sense of like economies at scale, like they can do it quicker, faster, better than I can do it. It's worth paying
Yeah.
for. And I think
Exactly.
that yeah. And I think that in the open source community, I definitely think that there's a place for business and commerce and
Mhm.
generating revenue. And I think that being a founder in itself is so honorable. And I think being an open source founder is just doubly so. So I love what you're doing with Marble, and I can't wait to see if you raise, you raising a great round, or if you get enterprise clients, what that looks like. So yeah, best of luck to you as you go through that journey.
Thanks.
Yeah, definitely. So my next question is, Marble is wonderful. It seems like you're very entrenched in, especially Vercel's open source ecosystem, but just the open source ecosystem in general. How can people support you, right? Where can we find you on social media? Where can we find Marble? How can we contribute, whether that's through PRs or GitHub stars or like subscriptions?
Yeah. So I would say, if you're a developer watching and Marble interests you, I would say the best way to contribute is to sign up, use the product. If you have any suggestions or issues with it, you can open a PR, an issue on GitHub, or you can just send me a DM on X. And if you want to support Marble without paying for Marble, you could sponsor me on GitHub. I have a sponsors profile. It's github.com/TAQH. I'll probably make a tweet about that. So yeah, that is the best way to contribute to Marble right now.
I love that.
Yeah.
Awesome. And I am just looking through questions in our community. But basically everyone is just saying, just to kind of show you how close and tight-knit the community is.
Yeah.
Everyone loves Marble. And so if you're not using Marble, what are you doing? Where are you at? Go to find marblecms.com, go on Twitter and follow Takib and get it integrated into your site, please.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. All right, last question. We asked this to everyone, and I think it's a great way to close out the show. But what is your favorite dessert?
Desserts. So I'm not really big on desserts. I don't have them often enough to have a favorite, right? But I've tried fried ice cream. I think I've tried it a few times and I kind of like it. So I would say that is my favorite. Yeah.
Same here. Yeah. Whenever I get this question, like my pancreas kind of is like wincing, like, like we've been on a weight loss journey. Like we're not eating desserts on a regular cadence. But no, fried ice cream is amazing. As someone who doesn't eat dessert very frequently, that sounds like a good one. So I love that for you. But yeah, is there anything else that you want people to know about yourself or Marble before we hop off?
I'd say that's basically it. You should use Marble. Check Marble out at marblecms.com, and you can send me a DM on X. I'm always available. If you want to call, you have feedback, please do. Please give me any feedback you can. And thank you all.
Yeah, we'll do. Awesome. Thank you so much for hopping on today, Takib, and I hope you have a great day. And thank you everyone for watching. Goodbye.
Thanks. Yeah.